stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, so President Trump at CPAC spent a lot of time talking about school security, of course, but that wasn't the only topic. He also mentioned DACA. We're a week away, approximately, from his
that's right.
self-imposed deadline.
Yeah.
And so he talked about sanctuary cities, and he talked about DACA.
Very, very important that we have offensive capability as well as defensive capability.
No, that's on school shootings. So let's try to get him on
DACA.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
The Senate Democrats and the House Democrats have totally abandoned DACA. They don't even talk to me about it. They have totally abandoned. We get the reputation like DACA, it's not Republican. Well, let me tell you, it is Republican, because we want to do something about DACA, get it solved after all these years. The Democrats are being totally unresponsive. They don't want to do anything about DACA, I'm telling you, and it's very possible that DACA won't happen, and it's not because of the Republicans, it's because of the Democrats, and frankly, you better elect more Republicans, folks, or it'll never happen.
All right, elect more Republicans to get DACA done. There's
easier said than done.
A little bit of jujitsu on the behalf of the president. Also, this is not going to help his case, except that he makes it very specifically, any DACA deal supporters, specifically separating out the good individuals who are going to be productive and independent and the individuals who are going to be problems. Like, for example, this 21-year-old student in the Rochester, New York City School District who was arrested yesterday after making a credible threat against the school and the students there, posting on Facebook, "I'm coming tomorrow morning and I'm going to shoot all of you bitches."
Okay, we say biatches, but all right.
No, we don't. Abigail Hernandez is her name, and she's a DACA student. So like in the American population generally, some people are dreamers and some people are less than that.
Yes.
For more on this topic, as well as Parkland and the Schiff memo, we're pleased to be joined again by our friend Matthew Continetti, who's the editor of the Washington Free Beacon and contributing editor to the Weekly Standard. Matthew, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So the Trump's pronouncement on DACA at CPAC, that a lot of acronyms being thrown around, that Democrats aren't even talking to him anymore about this. There's no deal in the offing. Is that your sense of it on the Hill?
It is my sense of it, and it's for one main reason, which is Chuck Schumer thinks that having the Dreamer population kind of in limbo will help the Democrats' chances to take back the Congress in November. I actually think that's kind of a dicey proposition. I think a lot of Washington just truly does not understand the real politics of immigration, which is that Trump has been winning on the immigration issue. He got the Democrats to collapse when they attempted to shut down the government. He led Nancy Pelosi kind of into her reverie, where she did that 8-hour speech that really signified absolutely nothing.
Yes.
But he has changed public opinion. I think if you look at some of the Harris polls, for example, some Harvard polls, you'll see that public opinion now is not only for a deal with the Dreamers, for sure, but also supports the wall, also wants changes to legal migration that Trump is pushing for. So why Chuck Schumer wants this issue out there in November, I don't know. I think it's very good for the Democratic base. Maybe that's why. But really, I think it's an issue that helps Trump right now.
So do the Democrats have any solid plan that they've presented? Because I know with the Republican
on anything?
no, with Dreamer in regards to immigration.
Yeah. Well, they have a variety of plans. We had that vote-a-rama in the Senate a couple weeks ago. And one thing that I thought was interesting was you had some of the potential 2020 candidates on the D side in the Senate, people like Liz Warren and Bernie Sanders, actually vote for a kind of moderate proposal, basically a proposal that gave amnesty to the Dreamer population while also funding some of Trump's wall. On the other hand, Kamala Harris of California voted against it, saying that she would never vote for anything that had wall funding. So you begin to see how the immigration issue really divides the Democrats, perhaps even more than it divides Republicans. This is a very combustible issue. It divides both parties. But when you look at the Democrats and how far they have gone toward the kind of basically open borders side, you begin to wonder whether it might not come back to haunt them in November and again in 2020.
I want to turn to the Schiff response to the Nunes memo and the reactions from, the White House, but also from respected commentators and journalists like Byron York and Andy McCarthy, that, the Schiff memo really didn't get the job done. What it did was fail to rebut and in part arguably confirm that they wouldn't have got the warrant without the dossier, and that the dossier was, and the nature of the dossier and who was behind the dossier was kind of soft pedal to the FISA court. It was purposely less than transparent. That doesn't seem to help the Democrats' case. It would appear on the face of it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little bit puzzled about this memo. Of course, they released it, in the week over the weekend, not in the middle of a big news cycle or anything. It's heavily redacted, which I think was part of Schiff's strategy. I think he wanted to get into a fight where Trump kind of redacted it, and then he could say that Trump wasn't being transparent. But he seems to have lost that. The real takeaway I think the Democrats want people to get is that the investigation into Trump ties to Russia began prior to the Steele dossier coming to the Justice Department. But that's something we all knew.
Right.
We've known about the George Papadopoulos' drunken conversation in the bar with the Australian for a while now, since basically the last December. So there's not much new in this memo to me, and the parts that are familiar, as you say, actually kind of confirm some of what Chairman Nunes has been saying. So an odd play by the Democrats, but one they probably had to do.
I want to move over to Parkland, Florida. NRA taking a lot of heat. A number of corporations have severed ties with them. Hertz, there's a number of airlines, insurance companies. Do you think it's fair to blame the NRA considering all the missteps by law enforcement in Florida?
No, I don't think it's fair to blame the NRA at all. And in fact, I'm a little bit disturbed at the speed at which these corporations are severing ties to this very large organization, almost all of whose members are law-abiding, and really is an organization that has influence not because of the money. Everyone's talking about the money they have in politics. That's not why the NRA has influence. It's because they have voters. And no less than the New York Times actually put this on their front page this weekend, saying to New York Times readers, good liberals all, well, look, it's not just the money. It's the NRA. There's actually great public support for Second Amendment rights in this country. So for these large corporations just to bow to basically mob pressure is disturbing to me. And even more disturbing is to see the press kind of cheer it on, right? I mean, the press has been warning us about a crisis in democracy because of Donald Trump's election for now over a year. And yet, when we see the reaction to the Parkland shooting, kind of the demands for immediate action, with no deliberation, kind of these pressure campaigns to just blame the NRA when we know that basically anyone who could have failed in the run-up to this tragedy did fail. I think the media needs to take a look in the mirror about what it means when they use the word democracy.
Well, and the other thing, too, is if they want to continue to pursue that narrative against the NRA and against President Trump, then they better stop having Sheriff Scott Israel show up and talk to Jake Tapper, because that's directing all of the attention away from everything else other than that dude.
I mean, Sheriff Israel is not acquitting himself rather well. It's funny, when the CNN had that kind of sensational town hall the other week, yes, Dana Lash, the NRA spokeswoman, said to raise this question of kind of incompetence towards Sheriff Israel, and people viewing at the time said, he really didn't respond very well to her. And now we know why. Because every day since that town hall, he knew. He knew exactly what's been going on. And
he knew before the town hall started that his deputy, his armed guard on campus, ran to the building but never went in and just sat there like a coward.
Right. And when he also probably knew about all the calls about this shooter that went to the sheriff's office. I mean, it's just what makes this story so awful is that it could have been prevented at so many different times. And I will say, though, Trump has done something very interesting, which typical Republicans tend to shy away from guns, the gun issue, after a shooting like this. Trump has actually kind of run into the issue. He kind of went into the wave, and he's done a few interesting things. One is he's kind of got the Republicans to support not only securing schools, not only trying to fix the background check system, but also embracing this idea, say, to raise the age for purchase of long guns. So Trump here is actually using the bully pulpit in a surprising way, and also a different way than you'd expect from a typical Republican president.
He is Matthew Continetti. He's the editor of the Washington Free Beacon, and he's also a contributing editor to the Weekly Standard. Matthew, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.